All right, I think we are live. I see the icon in the upper left corner. I think we are here. So welcome everyone. Welcome to the Luminary Leadership Society. Welcome to the Gathering Movement. I am here with Esme Gregg, and today we are talking about 5 tips to develop your intuition. So thank you so much for being here, Esme.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for having me to have this. I think it's an important chat. So
I think so too. And the real intention of the Gathering Movement is to bring thought leaders and visionaries across all different industries, right? So from the healing arts, which we'll talk about today, to fitness, to nutrition, to education, and really empower each individual person to become the leader of their lives. And I think what we're talking about today is extremely important because a lot of us are not living an intuitively led life, or maybe we want to and we don't know how. So I'd love to start off by just asking you, what does intuition mean to you?
wow, great question. So there's probably two ways of looking at intuition. To me, intuition it's internal. It's internal in the sense that it comes from within, but it comes from within with by having a connection with the outside, and not just the outside like our environment, but it's with a higher connection with your higher self. So that's why I like to call it soul inspired decisions. And inspired, it actually means in spirit, so it's kind of like a double. So soul in spirit, some of us call it soul, some of us call it spirit. So so intuition is basically that inner knowing of what decisions, of what to do next, when you are so connected with yourself, with your inner self, which is through practice, and we'll talk about this more. But it's following that inner guidance that you are when you are connected with that higher power. It can be God, it can be just your higher self, your spirit, your soul, whatever you want to call it.
I think that's a beautiful way of describing it. And as you're saying this, I'm thinking for myself, and I'm thinking for anyone listening, why don't we follow our intuition? Why is this something that we're not really taught growing up or in school?
I know, it's so true. And I did that. There's so many times where, in hindsight 2020, right? We're like, oh man, if I only would have picked to date this person, maybe I would have married that person instead, and maybe my life would be a little bit better or whatever. So yeah, we're not taught. We're taught to read and write. So we use our physical senses, right? Our 5 senses. We're never taught about that 6th sense, because that's weird. If you think about it, people that were using their intuition or their psychic abilities, think about it, a few hundred years ago, they were burnt at the stake, right? So it became a thing that was a no-no. And if you had these abilities, you definitely didn't share them. And for everyday people who have some sort of intuitive gift, including me, I was in the IT world, and for me to just blank out now, come out, it's like coming out, right? Like, hey, hey, this is me. But it's funny because we do use it. We're not aware that we're using it, and it's always there, but we don't listen to it. So intuition has always been it's like that best friend that we didn't know we had. And if we kind of knew we had it, we didn't call them very often. So yeah, it's definitely something that we all have. And I will explain the different types of intuition powers that we all may have, or a combination. And And it's like, in this world of superheroes and having superpowers, I think it's now finally kind of becoming cool to have and to utilize this. And it's a secret that a lot of business people use. Yeah. So and they train on this, and they develop this, and they follow it to make those gut decisions.
I think it's so cool. I mean, the times that we're living in are pretty different, but they're really special because, never in history have we been able to not only focus on embracing who we truly are, but now businesses and entrepreneurs are starting to learn that they can use their intuition to help them, get clear on their message, to speak to their audience, to speak to their people. What has that been like for you and who you work with?
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so true. It's definitely feels like when you connect with the right people, it's almost like you find your tribe. You find your people, you find your family. You're no longer the weird person. You're one of the hundreds of weirdos, and I actually have a group. I when I found an intuition coach, and I found this, I went into this labyrinth looking into this. I went to a conference where there was 500 of us, and we called ourselves weirdos, and I created a small group, of from those people that we all just clicked and connected in that conference, and we still keep in touch. And so it's like finding people that you have that connection with, and that's part of who you are. So it's not something to be afraid of, and it's okay if your partner doesn't like it or believe in it. You don't have to talk to your partner about it. You can call your other magical weirdo friend and talk about your, cool intuition things that happen, or cool stories, trade stories, ask questions, and just find your community. We're all out there.
That hits home personally for me because that's why this group was even started. That's why I started hosting women's circles, because I wanted to talk about these kind of weird topics. And on that journey, we learned that it's not so weird, and that there are a whole bunch of people who are down to talk intuition, listening to your intuition, your psychic abilities. There are those people out there. So thanks for that reminder. I think it's really important.
Awesome. And one thing about the word weird, if you look it up in the dictionary, one of the other synonyms is unique.
I love that.
So, we're all unique, right? And so that means we're weird. Weird is just, the silly word. It's a fun word. So, like I take pride in that.
I love that. Let's rock that. I
Yes.
like that. So today's conversation is really centered on, I think, the biggest question when it comes to developing your intuition. How do we do it? And you have 5 really awesome tips that you can share with us. So I'd love to hear what they are.
Yes. So let me just kind of preface a little bit. So like we were saying, soul inspired decisions, right? So it's being connected within yourself, but also connected with the external, and the external, not just your environment, but also the energy around you, that God, that soul, that spirit, the creative force, source, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, so we're not taught to use that connection, right? Some people, depending on if they have like a hippie weird family, maybe they do, which is awesome. And when we don't use it, it's basically like, I like to explain it that developing our intuition is like learning a new language, except you already know this language since childhood, since you were born. Basically, you were born with this intuitive, psychic, it's built into us. It's part of your body. Our body receives messages. We just don't know how to translate them. And so we forget when we're little. Imagine the world is magical when we're little, right? And we're capable of so much in our minds, and our parents lovingly in schools, they kind of quiet us down, and so we don't shine our light, right? So we, on purpose, most of us are not able to build on this. So yeah, so it's like relearning that language that we came into this world with. And so the 5 tips, okay. So that was just a little connection with that. So the biggest thing is to silence. So tip number 1 is to silence your mind for about 20 or 30 minutes a day. The best practice would be meditation. And meditation is just the activity of, it's like you say, I'm going to go for a run. So you know that you're going to go like this and your feet are, so that's an activity. So the activity of meditation, you can meditate as you run. Some people find a lot of calmness in that. And that's great if that works for you, but also really practicing that stillness. So it's like retraining your body to be still, and you're retraining your brain to be quiet as you focus on noticing your breath. And as you start practicing that, obviously there's so many other benefits, health benefits. But what happens is that silence within you, you start reconnecting and really feeling your body, and really reconnecting with who you are, and reconnecting with that source, that superpower beyond you that is flowing through you. And that's the main way to get started to begin with. There's no magic pill. So it's a daily practice. And so what happens is, tip number 2 is you start reconnecting with your body, right? You start listening and feeling the messages your body is sending you. So this is the language we're trying to relearn. Just to explain a little bit, in remote viewing, for example, in the 50s, the United States military, when we learned that the Russians were having these remote viewers, like psychics, to try to, so they could find out, this is before we had a lot of this technology that we have now. So basically they had psychics trained to see if they could find where certain things were, who was hiding what where. And they were doing remote viewing. So remote viewing is basically you're using your intuition and your psychic abilities. But guess what? They were training just anybody. And there's a certain method. And just to explain, is basically your body receives the answers before your brain actually does. So they have a method where you just kind of do certain symbols, and your hand is just moving. You're not translating it here. You're not making a logical connection. So that's
like stream of consciousness, journaling or writing, like that kind of practice, right?
Right. So that would be a more, yeah. So I'm just using the example of remote viewing. So this is like being in spirit, but of course I'm talking about military training, so they don't use those words, right? So for somebody that's more on the science-based part, I like to bring up that example. So like do more research on remote viewing training by the military. And if you will see the similarities. Basically, we all have intuition. We all receive these messages, and we can learn to interpret them in different ways. But yes, so in our spirit-led practice, journaling, just kind of like being in spirit before writing a message, things like that, or before writing a song, things like that, where the artist will say, oh, it just came to me. I just flowed. I wrote it in 10 minutes. So that's being inspired, right? So yeah, so meditation or silencing your thoughts, your brain, to really kickstart that connection, and then also reconnecting with your body. So that helps. It's a part of being aware. Our body will send different signals depending on like yes or no, good or bad type of thing. And the other thing is notice. So number 3, there's different types of messages that we all differently translate. And we say we use the word clairs. So clair senses, we have 5, and basically they're just like an enhancement of the senses that we already know. But it's an enhancement. So which one is more developed for you? So for some of us, you're more clairsentient, where you feel it. You know, maybe you get goosebumps, or like you feel energies around you, or you just feel good or bad when you enter a space, you know, like that feeling. You kind of just feel it physically. So there's so which one are you? You know, start figuring out. You can be 1, 2, all of them, but usually 1 or 2 are more developed than the other.
For people who don't know all the clairs, can you just name them?
Yes, I was yes, let me do that. So clairsentient is where you feel. Claircognizant is where you just kind of know. It's just a knowing. Clairaudient, where you kind of hear, maybe you hear you hear the answer. I don't know. I like to say, you know, it could be your guides, your angels, but you just kind of hear. Maybe you can connect with your, family members that have passed on, and you can kind of hear their voice. Clairvoyance, which is the one that most people are more kind of know the word more. Clairvoyant is where you see it. You see a picture, you see a movie, it just flashes. You just kind of see it, and it doesn't mean you physically see it, like I'm seeing my cup, but it's almost like a quick transparent image. So clairvoyance, you see it. Clairalience, it's a weird word. So it's where you smell it. So let's say, you're in the middle of nowhere, and out of nowhere you smell something that it's not around you. And I'll explain a little bit more of that. And then there's clairgustance. So that's where you taste it.
Cool. Very cool.
So I remember, just real quick, like my dad, like a year or within a year when he passed away, he used to smoke, and so there was that distinctive smell, and out of nowhere I would just smell him. Basically, I would smell that smoke, and I would literally like look around, and part of me was looking to see if maybe maybe I was around one of the boxes that I hadn't unpacked, or which would make sense. But no, and basically that was the way I related to it. That was just maybe my dad's spirit, his way of saying, I'm here, you're not alone. So yeah, that's the weirdo in me. So those are the 5 clairs, and just be aware, and you can research more and learn more on those, and which one do you have more of, and build on these. And so number 4 is ask questions. Make it a game. And making a game makes it fun, makes it, like it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. For example, let's say you're driving and you're going to come to a stoplight, or let's say you're going to turn, right? So you can't see what's coming up. So maybe you can just say, okay, and you just ask yourself, what's the color of the first car I'm going to see when I turn this corner? Mm-hmm. You're in your car, you can say it out loud or in your mind. And whatever comes to your mind, maybe you see a red car, maybe you hear red, I don't know if you can smell a red car, but let's say you hear the answer is red, and it's usually the first answer you get within the first 3 seconds.
I love that. I'm going to try that. I hope everyone listening will try that too.
And that's the coolest thing. So as soon as you turn the corner, So, if you don't see a red car, okay, it's okay because you were just doing it for fun. But little things like this, let's say, like one time I was on the phone with a friend and he was saying, oh, yeah, no, I'm not intuitive at all.
Mm.
And without me planning it or anything. And I was like, yeah, you are. Everybody's intuitive. I was like, look, just tell me, what color shirt am I wearing right now? And he just said, it's like I see lavender. Guess what color shirt I was wearing?
Mhm.
A lavender shirt.
I love that. And I think we all need that reminder because all of us are intuitive. It is our birthright to be able to have these senses and to remember. It's really this process of unlearning that you're talking about and then relearning, okay, I have to remember it.
Yes. And making it fun makes it, if you start practicing, so it's that muscle. So it's like learning a language, right? You're studying it, you're paying attention to it, but you also have to kind of practice and put it out there and maybe try speaking with somebody else, maybe try writing it, maybe record yourself. So you're utilizing it, you're building that muscle until when you actually go to the place where they only speak that language, right? Then you're really testing that. But so I would start small, start making it fun, but asking questions.
I
And
love
so
that.
the fifth one is basically, with all of that, just practice and have fun. And so don't start off with, what, oh, intuition, please tell me what, should I marry this person? Like that's heavy. Start with other things. And I think we had a great question. I don't want to forget. We had a great question in the
Yeah,
group.
we did. And I'm just taking a look at anyone who's listening. Feel free to drop your questions in the comments. We had an awesome question, which was all about how to decipher between fear and intuition. That's probably the biggest question with everyone. So yeah, I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
Yes. And that's, it was a really good question because it's hard to tell. That was a question that I wanted to know too. So the best answer I can give is, if you noticed how I've been describing, right? Soul inspired decisions, soul inspired. It's fun. It's, it's light. It's not hard. So if it's fear based, it's not love based. So if it's fear based, it's almost, not I'm a mom, but just, it's almost like that mom telling you, be careful when you go out there, be careful, so it's like that weary, afraid mom that's like, but it's like the recordings, it's all those limiting beliefs that have been stored in you. So if it's based on fear, it's probably not your intuition. So what does that mean? It means that intuition, it's like that loving best friend that's saying, come here, let's go over here, go this way, let's do this. Hey, let's get off the couch and, let's go for a quick drive. It could be something simple like that, so it's like a fun, light, probably uncomfortable type of decision, right? But just because it's uncomfortable, it doesn't mean that it's not good for you, right? Because we have to break out of our old molds and our limiting beliefs. So fear, so let me just tell you something about fear. Fear, it's learned, right? So we are born with two inherent fears, which are the fear of loud noises and the fear of heights, or the fear of falling, sorry. So those two fears were passed down from, when caveman, what we call the reptilian brain, just basic fears that were meant to keep us alive, right? Keep us safe. Well, that's great. So if it's not any of those two fears, where did you learn that fear from? So you can start kind of questioning that. And you can notice that, like, is this a loving message, or is this a fear-based message?
Yeah, and I
And
think A Course in Miracles describes these components of love and fear in a really just beautiful way, because it teaches you that there's only really two emotions and you get to choose which path you're on. And to go off of your explanation of the fear-based thoughts versus the intuitive-based thoughts, the best thing I ever learned was this idea of sequential thoughts versus and patterned versus spontaneous. And the teacher was talking about how intuition is this spontaneous feather light thought, whereas a
yes,
fear-based thought is patterned. It's like the next thing that you would think would be happening. Okay,
exactly.
whereas intuition is, it can be out of our time space continuum. It doesn't have to be time restrictive. And that was really, really helpful for me understanding. So I hope it's helpful for everyone else
Yes, I love that.
who's
And
listening.
yeah, thank you for adding that. And then also, and I didn't add this, but anybody that does meditation and practice on their chakras and things like that, um, I didn't want to add that as a tip per se, but it's kind of like an extra bonus tip. But basically, when we are meditating, and if you're working on your chakras and doing energy work, which is kind of part of what I do, our intuition, most of us know that our intuition is in our third eye, but it also comes from our solar plexus, because we can get the message, but if in our solar plexus, if we're not confident in trusting ourselves, then we don't follow through. So that's where that energy work really helps as well. And, balancing and really part of making that inner connection helps.
I love that. I think those are really, really beautiful tips. And it feels like everything that you've shared today is like the most kind of let's start here points. And I think that we really need that. I loved your example of, you don't need to ask who you're going to marry, but let's just start practicing and developing. And I see this as a muscle. Intuition is a muscle.
Exactly.
So you have to keep strengthening it and notice that it doesn't feel the same as those fear-based thought patterns. So I think you did a really, really awesome job at that. And for us to wrap up our conversation today, I'd love to hear how people can get in touch with you. What's next for you? How can they enter your world?
Awesome. Thank you. And I'm so excited. Yeah, I would love to connect. Anybody that wants to connect, I appreciate you. I am all over the place. I have a YouTube channel. It's called Happy Soul Evolution, where I have a live video podcast. It's called Soul Talks with Esme. And Miss Bridget's going to be my guest in a few weeks. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, so please subscribe, and you will find out when Bridget is on. Also, so I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and my handle, or it's just at Esme Gregg. And I do have a Facebook business page where you can kind of learn a little bit more about my business. And if you want to book a discovery call, it's an Esme Gregg Coach. And I do have a free Facebook group where I offer weekly energy healing, energy clearing. Right now, we're basically going every week. I go and clear every chakra. So we did the root chakra twice because most of us have a lot of buildup there. And so, yeah, it's my way of serving and just offering this. And so we meet live every week, and the recordings are there. So you just look up for Inner Healing Amigos and Facebook groups, and just request to join. Also, I will have a group coaching or group program coming up in December. And so if you follow me in any of these social medias, you will find more detail about it. I haven't shared all the details yet, but I will. And so I would love to have you. And if you do join me or subscribe, send me a DM, let me know that you met through here. And if you have any questions, I do help people, entrepreneurs, professionals. I come from that world. That's why I like to work with entrepreneurs and professionals to develop their intuition. And I also do life coaching, but I go a little bit deeper as a spiritual, intuitive coach. So I still do life coaching, but I also do energy healing if anybody wants to do that, or group coaching or one-on-one coaching. So yeah, just contact me and I would love to work with you.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Esme. This has been such a blessing to communicate with you in this way and to have you share more tips and really helped us understand how to use our intuition to empower us all. So I just want to thank you so much for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope everyone who's listening has an incredible day. Drop any questions that you might have and stay tuned for more of our Gathering Movement series, our Luminary series, all the things that we have going on in this space. Have a beautiful weekend, everyone. Bye.